Now let's talk about conversational dynamics and how conversational dynamics affect value creation. I have a scale here. If you go up the staircase, each step creates more value. Okay, so let's just start at the bottom rung. At this rung here, there's no value creation whatsoever. It's called inauthentic conversation. It's withheld communication. Now, what I'm going to do here is kind of go over a summary first, and then we'll take each rung a little bit deeper. And then we will take the top rung, which is authentic conversations, the deepest. That'll be in the second part of our presentation. So, inauthentic conversations are withheld communications. Closed conversations are different than inauthentic. They are conversations that you certainly know where I'm standing, but where I'm standing is very positional. It's very, my assessments I'm holding is the truth. Whereas inauthentic conversations, I don't know where I'm standing, or you don't know where I'm standing. You don't know where I'm standing because I don't tell you. In a closed conversations, I tell you, but I tell you with no openness to negotiate, no openness to hear a counterpoint of view. This is where I am forcing my viewpoint on you, and if I'm listening at all to what you have to say, I'm listening for the flaws in your argument. One level up from there is open conversations where I am willing to listen to you. I'm willing to separate my facts from my assessments. I'm willing to look at your facts and your assessments and come to a reasonable conclusion. In authentic conversations, I am looking for, willing to do a lot more disclosure, reach a lot higher level of understanding, and resolve what I call interpersonal issues. So where this is, to a large extent, transactional in nature, I would argue from here down, you are having these conversations every day within your work environment. Almost every moment within every day in your work environment. Whereas this is very relationship oriented, and it usually arises when you have some break in trust or some issue that arises between two people. They're going to have to resolve it at an authentic level, and pure transactional resolution will not work. So, if you look at everything to the left of that line, you've got reactive conversations, a lot of resistance, a lot of waste and fear. The whole idea now in American manufacture is lean production, and lean production is throwing out waste. So I say that a great lean initiative within companies would be to get rid of the waste in conversations, all right? Because everything on the left-hand side, all it does is create interpersonal mush, and it has a high degree of dysfunctionality. Clearly, if all you're here, if you're only at this level within the conversation, you are highly dysfunctional if you have very few conversations on the right-hand side of this line. So on the right-hand side of the line is where you build collaborative conversations, you build relationship and trust. And you create interpersonal clarity and high performance, okay? So any questions about this? Again, I'm just doing it very, very overview format, and we'll take each level one level deeper, okay? So, let's look at the, and then this is where you create value acceleration. This is where you have a high level of value acceleration. So let's look at the impact of our conversations from a systemic point of view, from a system point of view. If you take a systems view,
the previous slide, because I had a question mark when I was going through it. No, the next one. The next slide. This one. Is it just to introduce the next slide?
That's all. That's all. Yeah, you can take it out if you want. So let's look at the system impact of conversations. Let's look at it from a systems point of view. Every organization or team is a system. I would argue every human being is a system. And as a system, we're perfectly designed to produce the results we're producing. So that's a hard statement to own when you don't like the results. It's a hard statement to own when you're a CEO and you don't like the results. And as a CEO, you have a major impact on the system design. It's a hard statement to own when you're a CXO, when you're a manager, you don't like the results. Even as a CXO or a manager, even as an individual contributor, believe it or not, you have an impact on the system design. So the bad and good news of it is, the bad news is you help design the system. So whatever's going on in your organizations, you help design it. And the good news is you can change the design of the system. And all you have to do to change the design of the system is change the conversations. Start moving from inauthentic, closed conversations up to authentic and open or open and authentic conversations. Because if you look at the conversational link, then, is people engage in conversations that create the system design, which creates the results. The entire design was created in a conversation. Now, you may have forgotten the conversation, so that's the implicit part of the design, but it's embodied in things called policy manuals. And again, the rules of engagement of your team, the rules of engagement of your department, the rules of engagement of your company. Those were all generated out of conversations that people had out of their experience, okay? They produce results by cooperating, there's the word again, cooperating toward a common goal, collaborating, which means thinking together and doing what's necessary to achieve that goal, designing what's necessary to achieve that goal, and then coordinating action together in a network of conversations. Again, a very powerful way to look at an organization is a network of conversations. If you're in the manufacturing business and you take a point of view of a PO being the conversational thing called a request for product, and you look at shipping being the delivery upon that promise that you made to the customer's PO, when you're going to ship the product and what you're going to ship. In order to get from that PO to shipment, a lot of people have to coordinate action together in a very powerful way, in a highly coordinated way if you want a 99.9% on-time shipment. Now, sometimes those conversations are embedded or embodied within systems. But at the end of the day, it's still people either conversing, so to speak, metaphorically with the system, or conversing with each other for that to get accomplished. Then you've got the network of conversations that includes all the spoken conversations, which are easily intervened in, but more powerfully, the unspoken conversations. And I would say that most of the negative results that a company gets are because people are not willing to make their unspoken conversations visible. In other words, they're not willing to speak their viewpoint for whatever reason, and the system is locked in because of the unspoken conversations far more powerfully than the spoken conversations. So if you want new results, again, you have to have new conversations. That's how it works. So then you say to yourself, okay, like what blocks change? What blocks change? The first thing is this, is insufficient pain. You know, if you're a smoker, for example, and I'm a reformed smoker, so I can speak to this subject. And so I started smoking actually outside of college, so I didn't have the traditional, teenage smoking habit. And then once I got hooked, as time went on, the penalties for smoking from a health perspective became much more known than they were when I started smoking, and yet I had a certain amount of addiction, so I had insufficient pain. As I began to see myself not being able to do some of the things I wanted to do because of shortness of breath and things like that, the pain got a little bit bigger. Eventually I decided to give it up. And the pain, meaning the projected pain of emphysema or something else, forced me to give it up. Then I needed an actionable working theory. So, I mean, I didn't know how to give it up. So let me say it this way. I gave up smoking 20, 30 times. I mean, it didn't work. So I took this 5-day no-smoking clinic, and they gave me an actionable working theory. They said if you want to give up smoking, the first thing is to get your body cleansed as quickly as possible. The second thing is do not eat foods that trigger the nicotine addiction. For example, coffee, caffeine is a derivative. It'll trigger smoking, purine, you name it. Then they told me how to exercise, and they told me what to drink and what to eat. And then they also educated me in the whole dynamic of it all. And during that 5 days, I gave it up and never went back. So I had an actionable working theory. Finally, I needed actionable distinctions, which were part of the working theory that I just talked to you about. And if you look at our language to a large extent, most of our language obscures action. We have a lot of what I call non-actionable distinctions, things that sound well. Now, if people in HR communities, the OD community, in the team building community, I am sure every one of you have great understanding of the whole dynamic of teams, and yet I would also say that if you were like I was, pre-1990, You would also have great words, but you wouldn't necessarily know what to do with them. They weren't actionable distinctions. And the other thing is we have the ability, and a natural ability, to create self-tranquilizing explanations for why we're not getting the results we want to get. When that doesn't work, we have excuses, and then finally, all else fails, we blame somebody else. So that stops all learning. That takes our responsibility and moves it from us to somebody else. And once we do that movement of responsibility, we've stopped learning. And then finally, not seeing the system as a system or our conversations as a system design. So that's kind of what I consider block change.